Hi, guys. Welcome. It's that time again. NBA recap, except we got a twist because it's the NBA Finals, guys. It's finally here. All year we waited to get to this spot. It's been a while since myself, Rencity, host of Sports and Shorts of Sorts, has dropped an NBA episode. And, with vacation going on, me and the wife went across the country. If you've listened to my regular podcast, you've heard about that. But there were still conference semifinal games going on when this was happening. So it's been some time. But here we are, June 6th, Thursday. NBA Finals. So, again, welcome. If you go back to my NBA preview show from April 20th, you'll see I straight up picked this matchup. So, if you want to go there and watch it first, watch it. Okay, I'll give you a second. Okay, you're back. All right. So, just in case you forgot how we got to this NBA's Finals matchup, let's catch you up to speed real quick. We'll do the Rencity few minute recap here. Starting the East, like we've done all season on this show, the Boston Celtics were taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cavs had given the Celtics troubles in the regular season, but way back after last episode, this series was tied at 1. Yeah, we're going way back. But the Celtics won 3 straight games, won the series 4-1. It wasn't your regular Cavaliers team, though. Donovan Mitchell missed some games. Jared Allen, he was still out the whole series with that rib injury. Karis LeVert even missed the last game where they were eliminated. So congrats to the Celtics taking care of business. After the series, it was said Donovan Mitchell criticized his teammates for their lack of focus in the playoffs. But he came out and nipped those in the bud, saying false reports, bad reporting, people trying to get clicks. But one report that was true, I didn't like this, but it was the dismissal of head coach JB Bickerstaff. If you listen to this podcast throughout the year, you know how I felt about JB Bickerstaff and the job he did this year. I said he should have got considerations for coach of the year, but you know what? Too many injuries, I guess. He readied the ship all year, but during the playoffs, it was just too many injuries to overcome such a good Celtics team. So, like I said, not a big fan of that firing. And, the old reasoning being we need a new voice. So, we'll see how the new voice does next year coaching this Cavaliers team, which should have high expectations going into the year. The other conference semifinal was a classic between the Indiana Pacers and New York Knicks, just like our 90s battles we watched growing up. Just after last episode, the Pacers kept the trend of the home team winning to tie the series, and this continued throughout the series, going into Game 7 in the Garden. He would not live up to the dramatic hype, though. Pacers beat the pants off a rundown Knicks team, and injuries finally caught up with the Knicks. And without Jalen Brunson at his best, this Knicks team could not muster up too much of a fight in Game 7. The Pacers would win by 21 at the Garden and send the Knicks home. Another great team coached by Tom Thibodeau that just broke down before the finals. You have to feel if this team comes back healthy with Julius Randle, who missed parts of the season and the entire playoff run, they got to be a team to be feared. But as many have said, Tibbs, this is kind of what he does. He's got to jump in the depth a little more. He wears guys down so much by the end of the year, they're not available for the most important minutes of the season. So we'll see what the Knicks do next year. We know the Knicks like the big splashy moves, but this is one where they should almost ride it out. But is that a Knick thing to do? We'll see what New York does going in the next season. But that set the stage for the conference finals in the East, with the Celtics hosting the Pacers. The Celtics were still without Kristaps Porzingis, and there was a chance he wouldn't play in that entire series. He didn't. But anyway, it turns out they didn't really need him. Game 1 in Boston, it was almost stolen by the Pacers. Jaylen Brown made an insane shot force OT, where in the extra frame, the Celtics just took over. And then things kind of got worse for the Pacers. After the blowout by the Celtics, Tyrese Halliburton, the all-star for the Pacers, aggravated a hamstring injury, and he missed the rest of the series. The Pacers did show off some of their depth, though, with big nights from Canadian and Andrew Nembhard, and TJ McConnell played huge. Pascal Siakam, he was pretty consistent, but despite that, Pacers lost Game 3 by 3 points. They lost Game 4 by 3 points. You can't fault the Pacers, man. They fought. They did everything they could without their guy, and the Celtics are just better, and they showed it down the clutch. Celtics swept the Pacers, like I said, in 4 games. Jaylen Brown edged out teammate Jason Tatum to win the Larry Bird Trophy, the award given out to the MVP of the Eastern Conference Finals. And there you go. The Celtics find themselves back in the NBA Finals after 1 year removed. That's your East update. Let's get you a West update. The up and down series between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Denver Nuggets. What a series that was. Wow. The Nuggets won in Minnesota to tie the series at 2. Then Denver won big at home to take a 3-2 series lead. Everyone thought you had the young Wolves were done, but they'd return home and beat the defending champs by 45 points. They looked poised to go in Denver and crush the Nuggets. However, the Nuggets jumped out on the Wolves and even had a 20-point lead. Then Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns turned it up, storming back late, sealing the victory, becoming the largest comeback victory in a Game 7 in the NBA playoffs. You could see the heartbreak on the Nuggets. They had eyes on defending that title, going back to back. You could see Mike Malone crushed in the post-game conference or in the post-game interview. A lot of Laker fans like that. They're hating on the Nuggets right now, so they're probably pumped about that loss. So the other Western Conference semifinals, the Mavericks took a 2-1 lead at home, but the Thunder would tie it up in Game 4, which sent it back to OKC, where the Mavericks would win it, setting up an elimination game back in Dallas. The Thunder jumped out on the Mavericks, but Luka would have a triple-double, and he and Kyrie Irving down the stretch. Wow. Too much for the young Thunder to handle. The Dallas picked up the win and advanced to the Western Conference Finals. But before I jump to that series, gotta give kudos to that Oklahoma City Thunder team. The youngest team to ever earn the number 1 seed in a conference, and they had some incredible season with so many young guys. It's just amazing to see. Like I've said on so many episodes all season, though, young guys gotta lose before they can win. This is part of growing in the NBA, more so than any other sport. So you got to see where OKC is next season. And even Sam Presti admitted, though, he did make a mistake acquiring Gordon Hayward. If you go back, I did question that move as well. The fit didn't seem right, and it didn't. He said that was his bad. Chalk it up as a learning experience and see where they go next season. I'm interested to see what Presti's going to do with Josh Giddey. He seemed to have kind of fallen out of place in Oklahoma, and they can probably get something for him. I mean, his stock's dropped from where it used to be, but it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. Those semifinals set up a wild Western Conference final matchup with the Mavericks and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Dallas went into Minnesota and won both games. Both were close games, but the Timberwolves, their closers could not match up with the closers of the Mavericks. Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving down the stretch. Man, that's something. When the series shifted to Dallas, the Mavericks looked even better, although the Mavericks did take a big hit when athletic rookie Derek Lively took a shot to the back of the head and had to leave the game. Game 4, the Mavs were missing Lively, and the Wolves had the urgency of a team that did not want to get swept. They would fight back and beat the Mavericks in Dallas to force a Game 5 back in Minnesota. It was the first time a Kyrie Irving team had lost in a closeout game, putting his record to 14-1. There seemed to be no lack of confidence from the Timberwolves side. However, in Game 5 back at home, they laid an egg. Commentator Stan Van Gundy said the performance was embarrassing. They looked like a team that was happy not to get swept, and they were cool with that. Mavericks cruised to an easy Game 5 victory and won the series 4-1, improving Kyrie's record in closeout games to 15-1. The guy's a straight-up assassin. Speaking of killers on the court, Luka Doncic was awarded the Magic Johnson Trophy for MVP of the Western Conference Finals. So the Mavericks advanced back to the NBA Finals for the 3rd time in franchise history and the first time since they won the title back in 2011. And you got to give a shout out to Anthony Edwards and that Timberwolves team. Cat was getting made fun of for shooting bricks all series, and he played big at times when needed. Anthony Edwards, a young star, but as I alluded to in the Oklahoma City part, these young guys, they got to lose these big games before they can win them. This is all part of passage. So I'm expecting big things out of Anthony Edwards. This guy could come back and win MVP next season, potentially, you know. Nothing builds you up like vengeance. But anyway, that brings us to today. We revisited the road that got us here, but that's behind us now. It's time to preview this NBA Finals. A star-studded matchup. Dallas Mavericks, Boston Celtics. And I don't want to toot my own horn again. Beep, beep. But back on April 20th, I predicted the Mavericks would face the Celtics in the NBA Final. You can watch that. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you got to do. But this should be a series for the ages. Health shouldn't be a big issue. It's said Kristaps Porzingis is suiting up for the Celtics tonight. He didn't play at all in the last series. We haven't seen him since the next series, so he'll be ready to go in game one. And the Celtics have they've done well without him, so there'll be extra pressure on head coach Joe Mazzulla to try to integrate the unicorn back into the lineup here. But if there's one thing, pressure does not get to Joe Mazzulla. At least he's not showing it in his press conferences. He's been a master at answering some of these questions. When asked if Kyrie Irving is a villain coming into Boston, Mazzulla responded, "We're all villains in someone's eyes." I'm like, damn, that's good. That's good. And then when he was asked if the lights will be brighter in Boston for game one of the finals, Mazzulla responded with, "Unless they change the light bulbs in the arena, I don't think they'll be any brighter than they were last series." So nothing shakes him here. So it'll be interesting how things shake him in the big moments of the finals. I mentioned the health of Porzingis. There were some health concerns following Derek Lively. I mentioned that neck head issue he had in the last series, but looks like he's healed up enough where it shouldn't be an issue. He's a rookie. He's a young guy. He can heal up quicker here. But regardless of who wins this NBA championship, it'll be the sixth different NBA champion in the last 6 years. To tie the longest streak in NBA history. Talk about parity. And it must be a tough watch for Grant Williams. The longtime Celtic left Boston for Dallas in a sign and trade, only to get traded out of Dallas to Charlotte, one of the furthest places from the NBA Finals. So he's probably tuning this one off. And then you have the Kyrie Irving, as I said, returning to Boston, a place where he said he planned on re-signing before leaving, and a place where he's flipped off the fans and stepped on the face of Lucky the Leprechaun. Irving has said he's grown up a lot since that moment. You can tell, like, this guy, I don't think nothing's going to faze him. The fans are going to do their worst, and you know Boston fans are probably fucking racist, but I don't think this crowd's going to have the effect they're going to try to on Kyrie Irving. He's bigger than that now. This is not going to get to him. And the other big return of faces, Porzingis and Dallas Mavericks. We know Porzingis played 3.5 seasons with the Mavericks, and there were always questions. Can he play with Luka Doncic? Former NBA player Chandler Parsons came out and said they do not like Porzingis in Dallas. Luka did not like playing with him, and there's actual beef there, which prompted a response out of Luka where he said, "I've talked to Parsons maybe twice in my life. I don't know where you would know that. KP and I have a good relationship. I don't know why people say otherwise." So more of the media making things up for clicks. That's why Rencity tries to be as accurate as possible in these podcast episodes. Mention all the different narratives and injury situations now for the game. I see Boston winning game one and Dallas stealing game two in Boston to tie it up. I see this format repeating itself in Dallas, and the series will return to Boston tied up at 2. Game 5, it's going to be close, but someone outside of the Jays, I mean Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, will make a clutch shot to secure the win. Derek White, I'm looking at you. Then in game 6, I see the Celtics keeping a large enough lead to hold off that lethal closing combination of Luka and Kyrie. If you keep a big enough lead, when they come back, they might not be able to come all the way back. And I see that how it going down. I see, sorry, Luka, I see you losing your first finals appearance, much like former Dallas Maverick and Hall of Famer Dirk Nowitzki. I see Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum finally getting that monkey off their back, winning an NBA championship for the Celtics, which would break that tie with the Los Angeles Lakers for most NBA titles. It would put them one ahead of their rivals at 18. I see Jason Tatum getting his Kobe Bryant moment, winning the Finals MVP. Tatum has spoken of the mentorship he would receive from Bryant. A title along with a Finals MVP is in the cards for Tatum. That's how I see it going down anyway. I know it seems absolutely crazy to pick against Luka and Kyrie right now, but here I am doing it just as I did back on April 20th. I picked the Celtics to win there. Why would I change now? I'm so excited for the series. That long break between games has not helped. We've seen playoff basketball in the month of June. We haven't seen it yet. We're 6 days into this month. So this game should fix everyone's basketball, Jones. So make sure you're tuning in. And we'll see how close my final predictions go down. But before I jump into some WNBA content, there's some more NBA stuff to break down between episodes, like the announcement of the All-NBA teams. All defensive team features some studs. Miami's Bam Adebayo, Lakers, Anthony Davis, Minnesota's Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert, New Orleans, Herb Jones, and My boy, San Antonio's Victor Wembanyama. It was the first time ever that a rookie has made the all-defensive first team. 5 rookies have made the all-defensive team before, but they were all on the second team. Lou Alcindor, obviously becoming Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hakeem Olajuwon, Manute Bol, and 2 former Spurs, David Robinson and Tim Duncan. That's some pretty good company right there. The all-defensive second team, it was all guards. Chicago's Alex Caruso, Boston's Drew Holiday, Minnesota's Jaden McDaniels, Orlando's Jalen Suggs, and another Celtic, Derek White. That second team features 2 guards from the finals with the Celtics, and that is just the kind of backup you want to go up with against Luka and Kyrie. Should be fun. Going to the all-rookie teams, first team consisted of Miami's Yami Yakez Jr., Oklahoma City's Chet Holmgren, Charlotte's Brandon Miller, Golden State's Brandon Podzinski. No one saw him making this all-team. And of course, San Antonio's Victor Wembanyama. Very impressive. Like, what more can you say about the dude? The all-rookie second team featured Utah's Keontae George. He had some great games for the Jazz this year. Dallas's Derek Lively, who will be in the finals. We've mentioned him a few times this podcast. OKC's Cason Wallace, Houston's Amen Thompson, and Memphis surprise G.G. Jackson. He threw up some big games this year in an injury-riddled season for the Grizzlies. Now going to the granddaddy of them all, and the one that really has large impacts on contract negotiations, the All-NBA team, starting with the All-NBA first team. Milwaukee's Giannis Antetokounmpo, Denver's MVP of the league again, Nikola Jokic, Dallas's Luka Doncic, Boston's Jason Tatum, and OKC's Canadian stud Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Second team, you had Phoenix's Kevin Durant, Clippers' Kawhi Leonard, Lakers' Anthony Davis, Knicks' Jalen Brunson, and Minnesota's Anthony Edwards. Third team, you had Lakers' LeBron James, Golden State's Steph Curry, Phoenix's Devin Booker, Sacramento's non-All-Star. Remember, he didn't make the All-Star game. Domantas Sabonis, and Indiana's Tyrese Halliburton. Other big news in the NBA: some coaches getting some extensions. Ty Lue and the Clippers agreed on a 5-year contract, approximately $70 million, making Coach Lue one of the highest-paid coaches in the NBA. Sacramento keeping Mike Brown around. They agreed to a 3-year, $30 million contract extension. Washington Wizards, they took the interim tag off Brian Keefe, making him the official head coach going forward. And some big news involving the draft. The Atlanta Hawks won the draft lottery, making things tough for the poor Detroit Pistons. 3 consecutive seasons, they've had the best chance of landing the number 1 overall pick. In all 3 seasons, they have not got it. So I'm pretty pumped about my Spurs having 2 picks in the top 10. And sticking with the draft, there's been a lot of shakeups. Serbian guard Nikola Topic, he's supposed to be a lottery pick. He suffered a partially torn ACL, and his draft stock might be impacted by that. Hopefully he can get past it, make a big impact in the league. More reports coming out about Jontay Porter and what led to him getting banned from the NBA for betting. Federal prosecutors allege that Porter had racked up large gambling debts in the beginning of the year to co-conspirators and was encouraged to clear those debts by throwing games. This is some serious mob undertones to it. We'll see what happens with him going forward. And some sad news involving Denver Nuggets Aaron Gordon's brother, Drew Gordon. He died in a car accident at the age of 33 years old. Terrible. He's played in the G League. He's played overseas. He's just been retired from basketball 1 year. Just sad news. And we'll end this on happy news before we jump to some WNBA stuff. How about Chase Budinger? You might remember him lighting it up at Arizona in college, getting drafted by the Rockets, playing 8 seasons in the NBA before calling it a career. In retirement, he returned back to the sport where he was considered one of the best, volleyball. He was named National Player of the Year as a senior in high school, but decided to pursue basketball. With basketball on the back burner, Budinger has been ramping up his beach volleyball game, so much that he and teammate Miles Evans will be representing USA in the 2024 Paris Olympics Games. So Budinger will become the only person to play a regular season game in the NBA and Olympic beach volleyball. Talk about multi-talented. And I miss talking about basketball, so a large gap in between this episode and the last one. Sticking with the game of basketball, which I love so much, we jump to the WNBA. You can see me rocking the jersey here. Sabrina Ionescu in the house. The WNBA is getting more coverage than ever, and I must say, it's not all been positive. I'll go down the standings with little recaps on each team, much like I did with the NBA throughout the season. So if you're not big on the NBA, I don't know if this portion of the episode's for you, but I hope you hang around and dive into this WNBA recap with me. Starting in the East, much like we did in all the NBA recaps, starting with the only undefeated team left in the WNBA, the Connecticut Sun. 9-0 record. They've been consistently good over the last few seasons, and despite trips to the WNBA finals, the Sun have never won a WNBA championship. They look like they're trying to change that this season. They've certainly played at a high level to start this. They hosted Caitlin Clark in the Fever in the number one overall pick's first WNBA game. A lot of eyes on that. And the power duo or power couple of Alyssa Thomas and Duana Bonner showed why this team is a threat to compete for a title. Alyssa Thomas recorded another triple-double as she is the WNBA all-time leader in that department, and Bonner shared a game-high 20 points. Caitlin Clark also had 20 in the loss, but from there, the Sun have just been cruising. They had some blowout wins, some close wins, an overtime win at home against the Lynx, and a tough win over the Chicago Sky where Alyssa Thomas was ejected when she had a flagrant 2 for throwing down rookie Angel Reese. The Suns are a team that won't back down from anyone, and Brianna Jones has added to that dynamic duo in the scoring department. The Sun currently have their entire starting 5 averaging double digits in scoring. Carrington is one of the better defenders in the league. This team just seems to have it all. Throughout the season, head coach Stephanie White may have to develop a little more trust with her bench, because playoff time, you can't have this team getting worn down. We were talking Tibbs earlier, or you don't want to be forced into a tough situation if foul trouble presents itself in a big game late in the season. I mean, I'm nitpicking now. The Sun, they look like the best team right now, and they're forced to be reckoned with. Their last 2 wins over the Dream and Mystics, that was part of the Commissioner's Cup, similar to the tournament in the NBA, their in-season tournament. Connecticut is off until Saturday, June 8th, where they'll have another Commissioner's Cup game, that one against the New York Liberty, so that should be a really good one. Make sure you grab your popcorn for that. Rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Finals. Maybe the Suns' first loss of the year. I don't know. We'll see. Which is a nice segue to the second-seeded team in the East, the New York Liberty. 8-2 record on the season, coming off a trip to the WNBA Finals last season where they fell to the Aces 3-1 in that series. It's already looking like it might be a 2-horse race in the East. The Sun and Liberty increasing the gap between the next tier of teams. The Liberty have looked really good in all their games, except they really dropped the ball on those back-to-back losses to the Sky and the Lynx. Take those 2 games out, and this Liberty team looks really good too. Last year's MVP, Brianna Stewart's looked great coming out of the gates, leading the Liberty in scoring at 19.4 and rebounding at 9.8. 2021 WNBA MVP, Jonquel Jones, has almost taken an even more diminished role as Sabrina Ionescu has increased her volume this year. That big 3 is so good, and sometimes I feel Jonquel gets lost in the mix. She's such a great offensive rebounder, though, so it doesn't seem to hurt when she's out there banging on the boards, but I feel like she needs to get more touches on some nights. I know that seems crazy, get the ball out of Stewie's hands or Ionescu's hands, but you got to give Jonquel Jones her touches too. I think she's too good of a player to be considered an afterthought, so that's always going to be a tough call for Sandy Brondello to see who gets the ball and when. This team oozes with talent, but it's going to be judged on whether they can get back to the finals and whether they can win it. I haven't even mentioned Betnijah Laney Hamilton. She's averaging double figures and could be considered more than a 4th option on more teams in the league. In the last 2 matches played by the Liberty have been Commissioner Cup games. They trounced the Fever before beating the Sky. As mentioned in the Connecticut Sun piece, the Liberty match up with the Sun on Saturday in a Commissioner's Cup game. But before that happens, the Liberty play with the Atlanta Dream. So that is also another Commissioner's Cup game. Should be a good one. Third in the Eastern Conference are those very Atlanta Dream that I just mentioned. They're the only other Eastern Conference team to be above 500 at this point, sitting at 4-3. They've literally been playing up and down this season, winning the season opener on the road against the Sparks, just to lose the next game on the road to Phoenix. They'd bounce back with a win over the Wings, only to lose to the Lynx the next game. The Dream would change things up a bit, winning 2 in a row, first beating the Mystics in Washington before returning home and surprising the defending champion Las Vegas Aces. The Dream would then return home for their first Commissioner's Cup game and lose by 19 to the Sun. And superstar Ryan Howard has led the way for the Dream, as she always does, but she's had some real good help from Alicia Gray. She's played fantastic in her first season in Atlanta last season, earning her first WNBA All-Star nod. And this season, she's continuing that great play. Between her and Howard, it's been really good. And Gray's been shooting lights out, 54% from the three-point line. That's something else. How about 2012 WNBA MVP Tina Charles? She's been showing out, showing she's still got plenty of gas in the tank after sitting out last season. Her first season in Atlanta, Charles is leading the dream in rebounding with 9.6 per game, while also averaging 12.7. That's awesome. But as I mentioned in the Liberties recap, the dream match up with them tonight in the Commissioner's Cup game. Next up in the East, the Chicago Sky, currently with a 3-5 record, and they played up and down as well. We know there'd be a dip in scoring with Kalia Copper leaving town for Phoenix, and it showed. Although in her absence, Marina Mabry, another player I really enjoy watching, looks like she slimmed down a bit from last year, and she's leading the team in scoring at 16.8 per game. The Sky started the season with back-to-back games on the road in Dallas, where the Sky lost the opener but won the rematch. Sky then surprised the Liberty by going into New York and beating the WNBA final runner-ups. The Sky would then lose a close one to the Sun, where Angel Reese, like I said, was tossed to the ground by Alyssa Thomas. The Sky would then lose to the Storm before beating the Sparks. Then the Sky's last two games have been Commissioner Cup games, and they've been feisty. The Sky went on the road to take on the Indiana Fever in the first professional battle between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. And this game lived up to the hype. There was plenty... There's a play that we've heard nonstop about since it happened. Kennedy Carter gave Caitlin Clark an unnecessarily foul. You know, a nice little welcome to the league shot. And yeah, the Sky would end up losing that game by 1. But everyone's just talking about that foul, except Angel Reese, who didn't talk to anyone after the game and was fined. And before the next game, Reese would tell the media the WNBA is growing, and it's not just because of one person, it's because of her too. I totally get it. It is. There's not one person growing it. One is growing it more than the rest, but that doesn't diminish what anybody else is doing. I understand it, but people are already taking it and rolling with it. So I don't know. I don't know why people aren't taking this in a positive way, but we'll see what happens with people going forward. But you can't have what happened before the Sky's next Commissioner Cup game against the Liberty, because before that game, some fan with a camera tried to get all up in the grill of Sky players, specifically Kennedy Carter. Despite what you think of a player or what they did to your favorite player, you can't do shit like that. Luckily, security got involved. But dude, WTF, bro, what are you doing? That shit ain't right. The Sky would go on to lose that game against the Liberty, and Angel Reese was ejected after receiving two quick technical fouls. There was said one for the language to the ref, and the next was waving off the ref. So just like the NBA, WNBA quick on the technical fouls. I mean, it seems the trigger events for refs are motherfucker, if you say a motherfucker, or if you wave your hand in their direction. Those are big ones, I guess. But the Sky face off with the Mystics tonight in another Commissioner's Cup game. Some positives from the Sky included number 3 overall pick in this year's draft, Camila Cardoso, finally making her season debut. Great to see her back on the court. And despite all the criticism that comes the way of Angel Reese, you know, saying she doesn't do what Caitlin Clark does. Well, no, they're two totally different players that do two totally different things. Angel Reese is tied for 7th in the league in rebounding, and her 9 rebounds per game, and she leads the WNBA in offensive rebounding at 5 per game. So let's bring the hate down a little. Continuing in the East, we'll go to the Indiana Fever, the team that has brought Caitlin Clark fever to everyone. The Fever are 2-9 on the season, playing the most games out of everyone in the league. The schedules are really parading them around like a show pony. And all eyes have been on Caitlin Clark and the Fever as they open the season on the road against the Sun, like I mentioned earlier. The Fever lost that game and proceeded to lose their first 5 games of the season, where the Fever got demolished by the Liberty, followed by close losses to the Sun and the Storm. And then the Fever would go into LA in the first matchup between the number 1 overall pick, Caitlin Clark, and number 2 overall pick, Cameron Brink, would end in an Indiana Fever win, their first of the season, and it wasn't even about Clark's scoring. She finished 2 assists shy of a triple-double with 11 points, 10 boards, and 8 dimes. But the win came down to the penetration of Kelsey Mitchell and the fantastic play of last year's number 1 overall pick and Rookie of the Year, Aaliyah Boston. The Fever would face some harsh reality when they faced the Aces and got beaten up by last year's champs. They'd follow that up with losses to the Sparks and Storm, but they'd get that tough win over the Sky in the Commissioner's Cup I mentioned earlier, the one where Clark got knocked down by Kennedy Carter. The Fever would follow that emotional win up by playing the very next night in New York, where the Liberty again kicked the crap out of the Fever in what is probably the worst game of Caitlin Clark's early WNBA career. But it did come off a big win, and literally the night before. So I don't know. The Clark haters will be using this game to shit on her all season, but She did appear to pick up a knock in the loss, but the bigger concern was to Aaliyah Boston. She left limping with an ankle injury. I imagine Clark will be back for the next matchup, but I'm not sure if Boston will be good to go. That matchup with the Mystics will take place tomorrow, another Commissioner Cups game. And yeah, Clark's been dealing with a target on her back all season. And despite her turnover woes and the physical adjustment to the pro game, I think she's done all right. I think people need to pump the brakes on her, saying she'd have an impact like Candace Parker did to start her career. Not everyone can do what Candace Parker did, and she had the physical part of the game too that Caitlin Clark is definitely getting overmatched with right now. But she's got the star power, and this adversity I think will only make her a better player going forward. And let's not jump to conclusions here. People in Indiana witnessed some rookie named Peyton Manning throw a rookie record 28 interceptions his rookie season. And I mean, things turned out for him, right? He did all right. We'll see what Caitlin Clark can do here. I mean, I don't want to compare to Peyton Manning. I mean, I literally did, but that's a bit of pressure. And there'll be pressure on head coach Christy Sides as well. Her integration of Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark hasn't gone so smooth. And these are two dynamic players that you got to get working better together. Kelsey Mitchell's so damn quick. She deserves the touches she gets. And despite all the players I mentioned, I haven't even mentioned Melissa Smith. When she's cooking, this team just seems to be better. She can hit it from outside. She's a great rebounder. Maybe she needs more touches. I mean, there's only one ball, but a lot of pressure on Christy Sides to do something with that team. We'll wrap up the East by going to the basement where the Washington Mystics are on the opposite spectrum of the Connecticut Sun. The Mystics are 0-9, still looking for their first win of the season. They've clearly been struggling without the face of their franchise, Elena Delle Donne. The former two-time WNBA MVP has stepped away from basketball for the time being, and it's left a massive hole in the Mystics lineup. Currently, Ariel Atkins is the team's leading scorer at 13.2 points per game, but it's really a score by committee at this point. Crucial moments in the game, that hasn't really worked, and they struggled late, and that's why they don't have a win. I'd like to see more of Canadian rookie out of UConn, Aaliyah Edwards, maybe get some more touches. I mean, they're not winning anyway. Let her play. Let the rook play. The Mystics were blown out in their first Commissioner's Cup game against the Sun, and they'll be looking to bounce back in tonight's matchup against the Chicago Sky. Still looking for that first win. We'll go to the West now, and we'll start with the West leading Minnesota Lynx. I don't know if you saw that coming. The Lynx have played great coming out of the gates, leading the conference with a 7-2 record. The team has played fantastic, but the main reason of their success has been the MVP caliber play of Nafisa Collier. She's averaging 21.8 points per game, 11 rebounds, and one of 3 WNBA players averaging a double-double. The Lynx started the season winning a home-and-home with the Storm, winning the second game at home in overtime. The Lynx would follow that up by winning going to overtime another game. This time they lose to the Sun by 1. The Lynx would then beat up on the Liberty and Dream before getting blown out by the Vegas Aces. The Lynx bounced back by beating the Mercury, then winning both their Commissioner Cups games, beating the Wings, and then beating up on the Sparks by 24. The Lynx next game is tomorrow against the Phoenix Mercury, and I mentioned the stellar play of Nafisa Collier, but I have to shout out point guard Courtney Williams. She played with the Sky last season, and she's come in averaging 11.2 points per game while also leading the team in assists with 5.6 per game. Kayla McBride, Alana Smith have been huge for this team as well. And you haven't seen too much of her, but Alyssa Pilley had a career night against the Mercury. 20 points off the bench, 4 for 4 from threes, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, all in 15 minutes of action. I really like watching her play at Utah in college. I'm glad she got to show what she can do. She's a real good talent in this league. She's just got a really talented front court in front of her. So we'll see how she gets integrated into the lineup, and I imagine she'll make some big moments in the playoffs this year. Next in the West, defending champion Las Vegas Aces. They have a 5-2 record, which seems weird. Not the record itself. I mean, 2 losses is surprising, but just the fact the Aces have only played 7 games, the defending champions, while Indiana's already played 11. I mean, I know you want to show off Caitlin Clark, but let's put some respect on the champions' names here. Aces started their season beating the Mercury and Sparks, but then in a rematch with the Mercury, the Aces would lose by 10 on their home floor. They'd then floor the Fever, and then they'd win another game before going in the ATL and losing to the Dream. The Aces bounced back on the road against the Wings and beat them in their first Commissioner's Cup game of the season. And the Aces host the Seattle Storm tomorrow in their next game. We've talked tons about all the rookies and how good this draft class is, but how about we talk about two-time WNBA Asia Wilson? She's playing with a vengeance after losing out on last year's MVP to Breanna Stewart. She's leading the league in points per game and rebounds, averaging 27.9 per game and 12.4 rebounds per game. Oh, and she's second in the league in blocks, averaging 2.6 per game. She's been a beast on both ends of the floor, looking like the best player in the WNBA. Nike announced Wilson's getting a shoe, and she's been more than deserving of it. In her most recent game, she dropped 36 points, 12 boards, and 6 steals. First player to ever put up those kind of numbers. The Aces are cruising right now, looking for their third straight WNBA championship, a feat only done by the Houston Comets in the early days of the WNBA. And Jackie Young, she's averaging 20.4 with 7.6 assists. Kelsey Plum averaging 18.9. Chelsea Gray hasn't even played this season. She's still recovering from the injury she sustained in last year's WNBA Finals, but it's said she should be coming back soon, so that'll be good for her. Newcomer Tiffany Hayes, she's played great with the Aces. She spent her entire career in Atlanta before playing with Connecticut last season, and she's just been doing awesome with the Aces. Plus, it's cool to see rookie Kate Martin get some time. She showed up to the WNBA draft to support Iowa teammate Caitlin Clark, just ended up getting drafted by the Aces in the second round. She's really fit in there. She's a glue player, and she's probably going to make some big plays come playoff time too. Continuing in this conference, we go to Seattle to visit the Storm. They're 6-3 on the season, and they're integrating new components into the team. Skylar Diggins-Smith didn't play in the WNBA last season, and Nneka Ogwumike came over from the Sparks after playing 12 years there, the only franchise she's ever played with. So it's been an adjustment on the fly. One thing that hasn't need adjustment is Jewel Lloyd. Lloyd, she didn't have much help last year, and she won the scoring title because of it. But I do not see her repeating as a scoring champ because her scoring average has dropped to 19.2. But it's a good drop. It's a good drop. That means she's getting help. The Storm have 4 players averaging at least 14 points per game, including the players I've already mentioned, and as well as Australian center Ezi Magbegor, who leads the league in blocks per game, averaging 3 per game. The Storm had a tough start to the season, losing 2 straight to the Lynx, but since then they are 6-1, with the one loss coming to the Liberty in New York. This team is much deeper than last season, and they're not a team you want to get matched up with in the postseason. Currently on a 5-game winning streak, they take that winning streak into Vegas tomorrow in a Commissioner's Cup game against the Aces. Next team in the Western Conference is the Phoenix Mercury. They have a 4-6 record, and they have been up and down as well. Diana Taurasi's still the face of the team, even at her age, but she's got some help now. Kalea Copper coming in from the Chicago Sky is huge, just as big as Natasha Cloud coming over from the Washington Mystics. That influx of talent has made the Mercury a threat to beat anybody on any given night, and they've been doing this all without all-star Brittany Griner, who's missed the beginning of the season while dealing with a fractured toe. Once she comes back, this team should be even better. The Mercury started the season 3-1, including that big win in Vegas over the Aces I mentioned. But then the Mercury would lose 4 in a row to the Wings, Sun, Liberty, and Lynx before picking up a Commissioner's Cup home win over the Sparks. But then they lose by 18 to the Storm in another Commissioner's Cup game. The Mercury suit up tomorrow night with the Minnesota Lynx and some more Commissioner's Cup battles. And Kalea Copper is currently leading the Mercury in scoring, and Natasha Cloud leading the team in assists with 7.4. Next up in the Western Conference, you got the Dallas Wings. They're 3-5 right now, and they've struggled a bit without last year's most improved player of the year, Satu Sabale, who was injured while playing for Germany to get them into the Olympics. But said she's not expected to return until after the Summer Olympics in Paris. Plus, double-double machine Natasha Howard broke her foot in the season opener against the Sky. Said she'll be out 3 to 6 weeks. So it's been a real tough go to start the season for the Wings. But you can't put anything on, I think, my favorite WNBA player. I love watching her play. Arike Ogbongbowale is doing her best to keep her team afloat. Second in the league in scoring with 27 points per game. The Wings won their season opener against the Sky, but would drop 2 in a row, losing the rematch to the Sky and then losing to Atlanta. The Wings would beat the Mercury and then lose the tight one to the Sparks, but they would then drop 3 in a row, losing a close one to the Sun before losing back-to-back Commissioner Cup games, losing to the Lynx and Aces. The Wings' next game is another Commissioner's Cup matchup in LA with the Sparks. Wrapping up the WNBA recaps, we finished the West in the basement with the Los Angeles Sparks, sitting at 2-7 on the year. The Sparks started their season losing at home to the Atlanta Dream, and then they lose again in Vegas against the Aces. Sparks would win in their third game of the season when their win over the Mystics. But they'd lose the next two games by a combined 6 points, falling to Caitlin Clark and the Fever, then losing by one to the Dallas Wings. Sparks got their revenge on the Fever in the rematch, but they'd go back to their losing ways, losing three in a row by double digits, falling on the road to Chicago before losing back-to-back Commissioner Cups games, losing on the road in Phoenix, then at home against Minnesota. So here you have it, the WNBA recap. Hope you've been enjoying the breakdown of the teams in the league and what we expect going forward. Mentioned a few leaders in different categories throughout this episode, but let's have a look at our league leaders and stats here. Starting with scoring, you heard me talk about it earlier. Las Vegas Aces superstar Asia Wilson leading the league with 27.9 per game, playing at an elite level, head and shoulders above the rest of the league. Just behind her at 27.1, Dallas Wings superstar Arike Ogbongbowale. You've heard me mention numerous times how I love watching her play. Bit of a drop-off on the list as Kalia Copper's third with 22.5. She's fitting nicely with Phoenix. Minnesota's hot start, like I said, Nafisa Collier, 21.8 per game. Former teammates Sparks Derica Hamby and Aces Jackie Young tied at fifth with 20.4 per game. We go to rebounding. I mentioned Asia Wilson, right? 12.4 per game. She's leading the league. Her former teammate Derica Hamby, she's having a hell of a start for the Sparks, averaging 11.6 boards per game. Fisa Collier, the only other player in double figures, averaging 11 rebounds per game. Last year's MVP, Brianna Stewart of the Liberty, just under the double digits at 9.8. And how about the resurgence of Tina Charles, I mentioned with Atlanta? She's fifth in the league rebounding with 9.6. Looking at her playmakers, triple-double aficionado, Connecticut's son, Alyssa Thomas, leads the league with 8.8 dimes per game. Jackie Young of the Aces, second with 7.6. Phoenix Mercury newcomer Natasha Cloud, averaging 7.4. Number one overall pick, Caitlin Clark, 6.4 dimes a game, has her fourth in the league. And rounding out the top five, Skylar Diggins-Smith, averaging 5.9 dimes per game with her new team in Seattle. Go to the defensive side, our current steals leader. Who else? Dallas Arike Ogbongbowale, leading the league with 3 thefts per game. Behind her is Atlanta star Ryan Howard at 2.6. Minnesota's Nafisa Collier. She's having a hell of a season, like I said, at 2.4. Seattle newcomer Aguimike sits in fourth with 2.2. And rounding out the top five, Liberty's Brianna Stewart at 2.1. Just behind her, Asia Wilson at 2. So lots of good talent here on both sides of the ball. I mentioned blocks per game leader earlier with Seattle's Ezi Megbakor out of Australia, leading the league with 3 swats per game. Just behind her in second, Asia Wilson at 2.6. Tied with her at 2.6 is Sparks rookie Cameron Brink. Phoenix's Natasha Mack has been filling the void left by Brittany Griner. She's fourth in the league with 2.1 blocks per game. And rounding out the top five is Minnesota's Alana Smith at 2 blocks per game. Quick NCAA women's basketball mention at the college level, longtime University of Connecticut head coach Gino Auriemma has signed a 5-year, $18.7 million extension, become the highest paid coach in women's basketball. So there you have it. You have my NBA Finals prediction, just as I did back on April 20th. The Boston Celtics winning in 6 games. Jason Tatum winning Finals MVP. You have the WNBA recap. Thanks for tuning in. I'm looking forward to talking more basketball next week, seeing where these finals go. Where are they going from here? Where's the WNBA going? I'm hoping in a more positive direction. Little less hate will make the game even more great. But thanks for tuning in. Love talking ball. Hold that follow through. Rencity out.